Alright everybody, this is video number 2 of Fortress America. Now in this video I'm going to show you a little bit about how the game works. As I said in the earlier video, this is the setup here. The US starts with all of its regular military units on the board. It starts with no lasers, and the US controls all of its cities. The US player is free to deploy his units as he sees fit. So you don't have to use this setup I use here. You can. The bottom line is you put 2 units of any type into any of your cities. They can be different types. You can mix and match. And this is where the game will be different every time. Is you can try different strategies. Basically, in this strategy here, I put a lot of my weak infantry here in the on the western seaboard. Here, let me put this guy back here. There we go. And San Francisco should have 2 guys. There we go. Okay, so I've set them up this way because I'm basically going to try to concede in the west and a little bit in the south and make a primary effort to stand in the east. The purpose there being that there's room to give ground in the west and not as many cities vulnerable. Obviously, the cities in California, Oregon, and Washington, we're going to lose. Las Vegas, we'll probably try to make a stand there or in Salt Lake. But we're going to lose those western cities pretty much right away. So I'm conceding those and trying to hold the stuff in the east a little bit longer. You need to hold your cities not just to stave off defeat, but that's where the United States lasers are going to go. And so you need to be aware of that. If you don't have enough cities, you're going to not be able to place your lasers. Once lasers are placed, they can't be moved, so place them with caution. Never place them in a city that's going to be vulnerable to capture. Each invader has 8 infantry, 3 mechs, the transporter dudes, 4 of the hover tanks, 3 of the helicopters, and 2 bombers. Total of 20 units to arrange along their attack zones. The stacking limit is 5 units per area, including the invasion zones. So you have to be mindful that stacking limits apply at all times. You can't violate stacking. So you got to watch out for that. Sequence of play is pretty simple. Basically, it's highlighted right here. The first thing you do is your reinforcements. Then you declare battles. Then you can maneuver your units to fight those battles. During the U.S. player turn, lasers will be fired next. The invaders don't do that. And then you have a combat phase where all the battles are resolved. And then invasion is like post-battle movement. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to check supply, which is very important for invaders. Basically, they have to be able to trace supply from their present location all the way back to one of their invasion zones. If they cannot do that, each unit that's unable to do so dies. And that's a pretty big deal. Last thing you do on the turn is you capture territory. So if you've been able to go into an enemy territory and force them out of it, then you take control of it. If you capture a city, you take the city miniature off the board and place it over here on the victory track to keep track of the number of cities that you've captured from the U.S. So the sequence of play is pretty simple and deceptively so. As I said earlier, there's a lot going on in this game. One of the biggest things that's going on is the invaders, they get reinforcements starting on turn 2. On turn 2, each invader will collect 8 units of their choosing and be able to deploy them in any of their invasion zones. With the optional rules, you can choose to draw a random card from your deck and place only 5 random units. The cards will give you some advantages maybe later on. Thing is whenever the invader units are destroyed, they are placed on this destroyed unit mat and they never return to the game. So what you see with the invader units, that's all that you have. So I'm actually using like a Plano tray here to keep them in. But once these are exhausted, once they've gone on the board, if they die, they're gone. They never come back. And so placing 8 per turn, they'll start running out mid-game. The thing about the U.S. is when their units die, every turn the U.S. draws a card from the partisan deck. There are actually 2 cards from the partisan deck. And they're going to be placing not just partisans, but if any of their units have died and are available, as stipulated on the card, you'll be placing new tanks, hovercraft, regular infantry, mech units. There's one card that gives you new bombers, which are your most powerful units. Alright, so sequence of play. First thing we're going to do here, I'm going to go ahead and set the camera down again. Set it like this so you can see what I'm doing. First thing I want to do is we're going to skip reinforcements and we're going to declare battles. So yellow, and I'm just going to do it for yellow here. Basically, I take these little tokens and I put a declare battle token on any of the territories that I want to try to capture by the end of my turn. So I'm going to place one way up north here by Seattle. I'm going to place one in Portland. And basically all along the California coast, including LA, San Francisco, and LA. Yeah, we're going to attack all of those. Now, once I've declared all those battles, and I would do that for the other players as well, but to save time on the video, I'm not going to do it immediately. Now we do maneuvers. During maneuvers, you can never enter enemy controlled areas. Now, these declared zones, we don't control them yet. We're just declaring our intention to try to control them by the end of our turn. So I can't take any of my mechs and move them in here. Basically, they're in position to capture it, but they don't move into that territory yet. If there's enemy troops in there, we're going to attack them from adjacent territories. Now, the exceptions to that are our bombers. Bombers can fly over enemy areas and they can move up to 4 spaces. So we're going to go 1 and 2 into San Francisco. And this one's going to move 1, 2, 3, and 4 into LA. So, and stacking applies. So I can only send 5, maximum of 5 bombers into any one area. Another exception to this is we could potentially have declared a battle here outside Las Vegas, even though we're not adjacent to it or in what's called a attack or combat position, but our helicopters can do one of these special moves where they can move over an enemy controlled area, even if it's occupied, and then into this area, and then we flip it upside down to show that it can't attack, it can't do any more movement that turn, and at the end of the turn it'll flip back over and it'll then control that area. So that shows your airlift mobility. We're not actually going to do that during this opening phase. Next thing we do is the actual battles themselves. We have 3 of them. The first one here is up in Portland, so we'll just resolve, actually let's resolve Battle for LA. Let's do this one. Defender always fires first, and he rolls for all of his air units, resolves it, rolls for all of his mechanized units, which are your transport, your mech transports, and your hover tanks, and then it resolves those, and then his foot units, and resolves those. Well, we only have 2 foot units here in LA. Let me move the camera. There we go. 2 foot units in there. We're going to roll 2 dice for each defender, and we rolled a retreat and a kill. So infantry are firing. So the defending infantry are firing, and since they're infantry class, their kills have to come from infantry first. So they're going to kill 1 infantry unit. So this guy is going to go to that destroyed units mat. And they got a retreat. For the attacker, a retreat basically causes you to flip the piece over, infantry on its side, other stuff would be inverted, to show that it cannot fire nor move for the rest of the turn. Now the defender is done firing all of his units, we can take the attacker and we can fire our air units. Bombers throw a D10, and our helicopters are going to throw a D8, so that's what we're going to cast. And we got 2 kills. So 2 kills will take care of these guys. And these guys die. They don't go to that destroyed units mat because they can potentially come back and play. So what I do with these guys, I just put them off to the side here just to show that they can be rebuilt through the partisan cards. And that's it for a battle. Now during invasion movement, after all my battles are done, I can then move my units. Infantry may only move 1 during invasion movement. Tanks, mechanized transports, they can move 1 in your maneuver segment and also during the invasion segment. We didn't need to move them during the maneuver segment, but we are going to move them in invasion and put them in here to occupy the city. Bombers can never occupy or capture land territories by themselves. They have to have somebody else helping them. We'll move the helicopter in, And the bomber, we're going to rebase back to a central invasion staging area back here. And the reason why we would do that is so that they'll be in position maybe to help with other battles later on in the game in the next turn. It's also a good idea to try to keep your bombers together because of the way that the United States lasers will work. In our next video, what I'll do is I'll show you a little bit about the U.S. side. So what I'm going to do is off the video, I'm going to resolve the rest of this turn. And in our next video, we'll look at how the U.S. player works.